get the Esper Stoneblade deck list, because I got no interest in that. It's High Tide time, baby. There's some mixed thoughts about having High Tide on camera. Some people like it, some people hate it. Some people think it's boring. I think it's delicious and nutritious.
It's
so
great because
Kevin Hunt, make us happy.
It's great because you have one in the feature match area, and you know you're gonna have a match to cut to.
Yeah,
because it takes forever
for
that deck to win.
That's right. That's a little show into the business here.
Yeah.
We gotta make sure that we have
behind
matches.
the scenes information.
Make sure we have a match for you guys to show. So we have Kevin Hunt on the left here playing High Tide, currently down a game against Kelsey Dixon on the right playing Esper Stoneblade.
With some pretty insane glasses.
Yeah.
I have to say, those are outrageous.
Dope.
Truly.
As the kids say, dope.
Truly outrageous.
Yeah. Cool. Hip. Cool.
So, Esper Stoneblade actually taking game one. A bit surprising. That's supposed to be High Tide's free game. Because look at all the dead cards that the Stoneblade deck has. The Swords to Plowshares, the Engineered Explosives, the Jit and Batterskull, not that great. Increase the clock a little, but not that great. Supreme Verdict.
It's Jite.
Jite.
It's Jite.
Jite.
It's Jite.
Jite.
I'm here to help you. I'm here to help you make sure you pronounce it right.
Nihongo karimasu ka?
Come on. I don't know what that means. This cupcake is delicious, you're right. Is that what that means?
It's insane.
Yeah.
Oishii desu yo ne.
We had cupcakes delivered to us earlier, and that's forced AJ to speak the little Japanese that he knows.
Very little.
Yes.
But yeah, so that's supposed to be High Tide's free game, and then post-board you board in, more discard and surgicals and counter magic.
Yeah, a bunch of proactive
Then you
things.
have to really grind. But Esper stealing game one, it's got Force of Wills, it's got a counter spell, it's got some discard, Vendilion Click, it's got some cards, it's got some play for sure. So
we've seen High Tide be able to get by decks like this in the past.
Certainly, but they usually win their easier game.
That's true. It really depends on the skill of the High Tide player here, as Kevin is going to play a Candelabra of Tawnos. Brainstorm was countered by Spell Pierce immediately by Kelsey.
Yeah, Spell Pierce, a card that is actually pretty interesting against the High Tide deck because you can use it on the enablers early. You can use it on the spiral and straight up spiral draws, where they fight, and you're fighting and you both end up pretty empty, and then you spiral to sort of restart the game. It's obviously good there. Or you can use it on the High Tide itself, tapping two islands and choking them on mana the turn that they're trying to go off, if they try and go off early enough.
Sure.
So a lot of applications for that card, but Kelsey has access to Snapcaster Mage, which means you want to use your Pierce early because you're going to have access to it again very soon.
So you can use it again late.
Exactly.
Now we're going to see a Brainstorm here by Kevin. You see Counterspell, you see Force of Will, Nile Spellbomb. Pretty good hand over there. Surgical Extraction as well. So a very reactive hand here for Kelsey with a proactive effect in Nile Spellbomb and Surgical Extraction.
Okay, so part of the interesting dynamic here, another interesting way that these two decks interact is cards like Brainstorm and Ponder and Preordain that play with the top of your deck, especially Brainstorm in particular, versus discard spells.
Yes.
You play a discard spell, the High Tide deck brainstorms in response and hides their two best cards, but Surgical Extraction, shuffle away those two, and any that are in your hand, and then the discard spell still resolves.
Sure.
So Surgical, not only to take out a key piece of the combo, midway through the combo, or just take out Brainstorm at a convenient time, which it looks like this is what's happening. It actually has that pretty cool interaction with the discard spells. And once again, another sweet card to have access to when you have Snapcaster Mage in your deck.
That's kind of ironic here, as you see the Brainstorm in the draw step by Kelsey targeting Kevin. Kevin's Brainstorm was not the best, as he actually drew 3 islands off of it, had to put 2 islands back. He was kind of Brainstorm locked, and Kelsey said, I'll undo that Brainstorm lock for you,
bro.
Yeah, my friend, and I'll make things a little bit more easy for you. As Kevin, again, does have just a bunch of islands, and he has 1 blue card in his hand. I'm not sure what that card is, but his hand is 2 islands and
no
a blue
matter
card.
what it is.
It's got a long way to go.
Yeah, it's gonna need a little. It's gonna need some buddies to There's no one card that does it from this spot.
As you see, Vendilion Click is the draw for Kelsey this turn, and you're going to see another effect in the draw step, and that is the Vendilion Click.
Vendilion Click, one of the better cards against a lot of the combo decks now. Not only because it is proactive disruption, but you can also leave up counter magic, and then if they don't go off, you Vendilion end step, or you can Vendilion mid combo and really get a key piece. Say in response to a show and tell against show and tell decks.
Yep.
Very key. And it's actually a pretty fast clock.
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing to ignore. It provides the same clock that a Insectile Aberration or a Threshold Nimble Mongoose would, and that's what makes the Rug Delver deck so powerful, is because they're able to get a clock underneath and then start, assembling the permission in their deck. So, being 3 power is kind of the sweet spot that you find. That 7-turn clock, you can add to it eventually and really reduce things very quickly.
Exactly, and these legacy combo decks are quite resilient.
Yes.
If you, trash their hands, get them to completely fizzle with counter magic and all that, if you give them enough time to draw back up to like 4 or 5 cards, you could very easily just die. They have access to brainstorms too.
Yeah, that's true.
So Vendilion Click, playing double duty and playing it quite well, being a very fast clock as well as proactive disruption.
Kevin's hand right now, not the best. As you see, he has 2 Forcivals and a Flusterstorm in his hand, so his hand is completely reactive. He needs to find a Time Spiral and a High Tide. Even a Merchant Scroll right now would certainly work, but he needs to start doing something, or he's just going to get beaten down here by this Vendilion Click.
He's also, Kelsey's doing a lot of, not deck manipulation proper, but, he's seeing a lot of cards.
Yeah.
Which is, and it looks like he's gonna, quote, cycle his Nile Spellbomb. This is a pretty high velocity type of stuff where, as you're hitting more and more cards, you're hitting your land drops, you're gonna have more access to more counter magic, more disruption, brainstorm and a fetch in hand, forcible counterspell, the shields are up, the clock is on, exactly what you want against a combo deck like High Tide.
Yeah. And now you're going to see another attack here. Kelvin's going to move down to 14. He's going to untap. He's going to draw. He draws a Turnabout, which is a decent start, but he needs to really piece together, High Tide, a Merchant Scroll, a Time Spiral. He needs these next couple of draw steps to be real good, as you're going to see a Brainstorm here on the end step from Kelsey.
Not that great of a Brainstorm, but much better than drawing those cards over the next 3 turns.
Yeah. So you see 2 cards go back, and now you're going to see Flooded Strand get sacrificed away to make it a Braincestral Recall, as Ruben Bressler would call it.
I like that. Except all my Brainstorms are Braincestral Recalls.
Ah, yes, yes.
Man, I love that card.
You do?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Don't you patronize me.
I would never. I'm nothing but serious always.
Yes, of course.
So after resolving that Brainstorm, Kelsey's going to draw a Scrub Land to go along with his Flooded Strand. He has, of course, a Force of Will, a Counter Spell, and a Stoneforge Mystic to increase that clock.
Actually thinking about hard casting a Force here. I like it. You're not going to have enough resources to pitch a card to that Force of Will to protect your combo. You're much better off buying a couple more turns by minimizing that clock, countering the Stoneforge Mystic that would indeed close the game out much more quickly than the Vendilion Click alone.
Yeah, and if you're Kelsey, you don't even really care about that Stoneforge being countered, because it was more of a luxury than anything.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to cast it, and if it resolves, you're going to search for an equipment and, increase the clock. But if it doesn't resolve, there's no reason to fight over that. Your counter spells are going to be much better when Kevin finally does find the pieces to go off, which you see him resolving a Ponder here. Merchant Scroll, Turnabout, and Cunning Wish. So finally, some real cards
spells
here. Yeah.
Cunning Wish, a lot of High Tide players will sideboard out 1 copy of their namesake card, High Tide, because of the surgical extraction that we see in Kelsey's graveyard. So that Cunning Wish could potentially be a copy of High Tide, which is the type of thing that he needs to win. Thinking about this very hard, he's going to draw one of these one of these from the Ponder, one of these for turn, next turn, and then he's likely going to have to draw 1 more and then use those to go off. He's kind of constructing the combo turn. Does he need all 3 of those cards? Does he Merchant Scroll first, shuffle 2 of them away, and save 2 mana on your combo turn? If you scroll, do you get the High Tide? Do you get Meditate or something similar? Looks like he did take Scroll and is going to cast it right away, so he doesn't want that Cunning Wish or that Turnabout. I guess the Turnabout, a little superfluous with Candelabra in play.
He also has another Turnabout in his hand as well.
Sure. So, doesn't need that. The Cunning Wish, though, might be good. It's a little, it's better once you're already going off rather than in a spot like this where, you're kind of short on resources. You don't really have the time to cast it and then untap and then go off. So yeah, doesn't want either of those. Going to try and scroll up something a little more useful here.
So we'll see if he's going to elect to scroll up a Time Spiral or a...
Well, that would be illegal, so...
Well, I take that back. I apologize. Bless you. I take that back. Looks like it's going to be High Tide that he's thumbing. Nope. All right.
Understandable. The deck is, after all, named after that card. Something a lot of people miss against the High Tide deck. High Tide is symmetrical. It is all islands. So, if you have a bunch of islands untapped, and they force through, say, a Time Spiral, through your Force of Wills and whatnot, then if you draw a bunch of counter magic, you can cast it all. Like, all of your lands are doubled as well.
Yeah. And that's part of the reason I think that we saw Kelsey not fight over the Merchant Scroll, because he understands that eventually, for Kevin to go off, he's going to actually have to cast High Tide, and then when he does do that, he's going to be able to actually just hard cast all of his counter magic.
Yep.
Or at least get close. I mean, we see he has 1, 2, 3. He has 4 sources of blue mana, 4 islands in play. They're dual lands.
If High Tide's active, he has 12 mana available and 12 mana worth of counters in hand.
Yeah. So no reason. There's no real reason to fight over any of this stuff.
Convenience.
You see Kevin does ponder, and he puts those back immediately and is going to shuffle
away. It's
away.
like a Land of Force and something else bad. I would say that, what's Kevin looking for here? I mean, he's going to need multiple gas spells, right? I think his hand is like High Tide, Force of Will, Turnabout, maybe something else. The Turnabout likely being pitched to the Force of Will.
And that is
a second High
Tide. So, I mean, right now he just needs a Time Spiral, because what he's going to be able to do is once he's not underneath enough pressure right now, AJ, that he actually has to, be super worried as Kelsey does draw a Brainstorm. Of course, 3 a turn is nothing to ignore, but
yeah.
At some point, if he's able to find a Time Spiral, he's actually going to be able to turn about Kelsey's lands and then be able to get the show rolling. And there's a second Turnabout.
So now he really only needs a gas spell.
And something interesting that he can do here, as well, is he can kind of do a test Turnabout, maybe.
Oh, the Bluff Arms chant.
Yeah, Turnabout you on your in your upkeep or your end step, and see if you want to fight over this one, or maybe I'm bluffing, maybe I'm not.
It's a risk. It's a risky maneuver to just let that resolve.
It is definitely a risk, and that's part of the power of that card.
Say he does get the Turnabout off. Kelsey's hand is Force, Counterspell, Brainstorm, which, even with no mana, that is still access to 2 counters. Kevin Hunt has 1 counter, so he is going to need either 2 gas spells or a gas spell and another counter.
So now we're seeing Turnabout be cast here. And it looks like we're going to see a hard cast Force of Will. So, if I am Kevin, I'm pretty happy with this exchange.
Yep. Can't be too disappointed there. Kelsey not casting that Brainstorm, leaving it in hand for the Force of Will so that he doesn't have to pitch a card to this one. Save that for, more risky cards than just the Turnabout.
And so now it looks like we're going to see a Flusterstorm here.
That is for 3.
So the thing that we had not taken into account here is that, as we're going to see counterspell in the turnabout now, is this is a lethal attack currently.
Oh, I thought he had like 2 more turns.
Yeah, I thought he had 2 more turns as well, but we got
This
a life
turnabout
total
is
update.
actually on creatures.
Yes.
And Kelsey's trying to kill his opponent.
Yes.
That changes what I thought was happening. And it looks like that's the game.
So there's a Force of Will targeting that.
And there's
that's
the
a
hand.
Yeah. So I thought he was at 5, but once we got our life total
Yeah, I
update
thought he was
from our
going from 8 to 5.
Yeah, once we got our life total update from our spotter, everything that's happening there makes a lot more sense. As Vendilion Click providing a very nice clock there and able to end the game. So Kelsey Dixon